Panaetius of Rhodes stands as one of the most important figures in the history of Stoicism, a school of philosophy founded in Athens by Zeno of Citium around 300 BCE. Panaetius is best known for adapting Stoic thought for a Roman audience, blending it with other philosophical traditions, and making it more practical for the needs of everyday life, especially in the Roman political and social context. His influence extended far beyond his own time, shaping the Stoicism of later thinkers such as Cicero, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. While most of his writings have been lost to history, the impact of Panaetius on both Stoicism and Roman intellectual life remains profound. His philosophical moderation, critical engagement with earlier Stoic doctrines, and his emphasis on ethics and duty helped transform Stoicism into a more flexible and accessible philosophical system, making it one of the most enduring schools of thought in Western philosophy. 1. Early life and education. Panaetius was born around 185 BCE on the island of Rhodes, a cultural and intellectual hub in the Hellenistic world. Rhodes was known for its impressive schools of philosophy and rhetoric, as well as for being a center of maritime trade and political diplomacy. Growing up in such an intellectually vibrant environment, it is no surprise that Panaetius developed an early interest in philosophy. Like many of his contemporaries, Panaetius traveled in search of philosophical instruction. He studied in Athens, which was still a major center of learning, and there he became a pupil of Diogenes of Babylon and Antipater of Tarsus, two leading figures in the Stoic school. Diogenes of Babylon, known for his diplomatic visit to Rome, was a key figure in shaping Stoic thought during the Middle Stoa period, while Antipater focused heavily on logic and ethics, emphasizing the development of moral character through reason. In addition to his Stoic education, Panaetius was influenced by other philosophical traditions, particularly Platonism and Aristotelianism. This broad intellectual training would later become a hallmark of Panaetius's approach to philosophy, as he was willing to incorporate ideas from other schools of thought into his own version of Stoicism. 2. Move to Rome and the Cionic circle. One of the most significant moments in Panaetius's life came when he moved to Rome. At this time, Rome was becoming the dominant power in the Mediterranean world, having defeated Carthage in the Punic Wars and expanded its influence across Greece and the Hellenistic world. Rome was not only a military and political powerhouse, but also a cultural melting pot, where Greek philosophy, art, and literature were increasingly influencing Roman elites. Panaetius became closely associated with the Roman statesman and General Scipio Aemilianus, who was famous for leading the final assault on Carthage in 146 BCE and for his role in Roman politics. Scipio was not only a skilled military leader, but also a patron of the arts and philosophy. He gathered around him a group of intellectuals and writers known as the Cionic Circle, which included figures like the historian Polybius and the playwright Terence. This group was dedicated to exploring Greek culture and thought, and Panaetius quickly became an influential member. Through his association with Scipio and other Roman elites, Panaetius gained access to the highest levels of Roman society. He became a trusted advisor to Scipio and a teacher to many young Roman nobles who were interested in philosophy. It was during this period that Panaetius began to adapt Stoic philosophy to meet the needs of Roman statesmen and thinkers, who were more interested in practical ethics and political philosophy than in the more abstract metaphysical concerns of early Stoicism. 3. The transformation of Stoicism. Panaetius is often credited with softening some of the more rigid doctrines of early Stoicism, making the philosophy more accessible and adaptable to a Roman audience. Early Stoicism, as developed by Zeno of Citium, Cleanthes, and Chrysippus, was known for its strict emphasis on living in accordance with nature, self-control, and the suppression of emotions. While Panaetius did not reject these core Stoic principles, He modified them in significant ways to make them more relevant to the social and political realities of Roman life. Ethical flexibility. One of the major contributions of Panaetius was his emphasis on ethical flexibility. Early Stoicism tended to present an idealized version of the Stoic sage, a person who is perfectly rational, self-sufficient, and indifferent to external circumstances such as wealth, status, and even physical suffering. While this ideal had great philosophical appeal, it was difficult to apply in practice, especially for Roman statesmen who were engaged in the daily struggles of politics and governance. Panaetius recognized that most people, especially those involved in public life, could not live up to the demanding standards of the Stoic sage. Instead, he promoted a more practical form of ethics, one that emphasized moral improvement rather than perfection. He argued that people should strive to do their best to act virtuously, even if they could not achieve the ideal of the Stoic sage. This more moderate approach to ethics made Stoicism more accessible to a wider audience and allowed it to flourish in Roman society. The concept of duty. One of Panaetius's most important contributions to Stoic ethics was his emphasis on the concept of duty, Latin officium. Panaetius argued that individuals have certain moral obligations to themselves, to others, and to society as a whole. These duties are derived from a person's social roles and relationships, and they provide a practical guide for ethical behavior in everyday life. For example, a Roman senator has a duty to govern justly and to protect the interests of the people, while a parent has a duty to care for and educate their children. Panaetius's focus on duty resonated deeply with the Roman sense of responsibility and public service, and it became a central theme in later Roman Stoicism. Cicero, who was deeply influenced by Panaetius, later expanded on this concept in his famous work De Officiis, on duties, which became one of the most important ethical treatises in Western philosophy. In this work, Cicero directly credits Panaetius as his main source of inspiration, and he praises the philosopher for providing a clear and practical guide to moral duty. Rejection of Stoic fatalism. Another area where Panaetius departed from early Stoic thought was in his rejection of Stoic fatalism and the doctrine of ekpyrosis, the periodic destruction and rebirth of the universe. The early Stoics believed that the universe was governed by a strict determinism, with everything that happens being the result of a divine plan. They also believed that the universe would periodically be destroyed by fire and then reborn in a cyclical process. Panaetius, however, was skeptical of these ideas. He argued that while the universe may be governed by rational principles, this did not necessarily mean that everything was predetermined or that humans lacked free will. He believed that human beings had a degree of control over their actions and that ethical behavior depended on the exercise of rational choice rather than blind submission to fate. This more flexible approach to cosmology and determinism made Stoicism more appealing to Roman thinkers who were often uncomfortable with the fatalism of early Stoicism. By downplaying the role of fate, Panaetius allowed for a more optimistic view of human agency and moral responsibility. Integration of Platonism and Aristotelianism. Panaetius was also open to incorporating ideas from other philosophical schools, particularly Platonism and Aristotelianism. This was a departure from the more purist approach of early Stoicism, which had emphasized the uniqueness of Stoic doctrine. Panaetius, however, saw value in the teachings of other philosophers, especially in the areas of ethics and political philosophy. For example, Panaetius borrowed from Plato's concept of the tripartite soul, which divides the human psyche into three parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. He also drew on Aristotle's ideas about virtue and the importance of finding a golden mean between extremes. By blending these ideas with Stoic philosophy, Panaetius created a more nuanced and flexible ethical system that appealed to Roman intellectuals. 4. Influence on Roman thought. Panaetius' influence on Roman thought cannot be overstated. Through his association with Scipio Aemilianus and other members of the Roman elite, he helped to spread Stoic philosophy among the ruling class of Rome. His emphasis on practical ethics, duty, and moral responsibility resonated deeply with Roman values, especially among politicians and statesmen. Perhaps the most important figure to be influenced by Panaetius was Cicero, the Roman statesman, orator, and philosopher. Cicero admired Panaetius for his practical approach to philosophy and for his focus on duty and ethics. In his work De Officiis, on duties, Cicero built on Panaetius's ideas to create a comprehensive guide to ethical behavior for Roman politicians and citizens. Cicero's De Officiis became one of the most widely read works of moral philosophy in the Western world and had a lasting influence on both Christian and secular thought. Through Cicero's writings, Panaetius's ideas continued to shape ethical thought for centuries, influencing philosophers such as Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, and Immanuel Kant. 5. Writings and legacy. Although most of Panaetius's writings have been lost, his influence can be felt through the works of later philosophers, particularly Cicero. Panaetius is known to have written a treatise on duty, which formed the basis for Cicero's De Officiis, as well as works on divination, cosmology, and ethics. His moderate approach to Stoicism, emphasis on duty, and rejection of fatalism had a profound impact on the development of Roman Stoicism, paving the way for later philosophers like Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius. These thinkers, in turn, developed Stoicism into a system that was deeply concerned with personal ethics, self-improvement, and public service. In many ways, Panaetius can be seen as the bridge between early Greek Stoicism, with its emphasis on abstract metaphysics, and Roman Stoicism, which was more focused on practical ethics and personal conduct. By making Stoicism more accessible to a wider audience and adapting it to the needs of Roman society, Panaetius helped ensure the survival and flourishing of Stoic philosophy in the Roman world. Conclusion. Panaetius of Rhodes was a pivotal figure in the history of Stoicism, helping to transform the philosophy from its early, more rigid form into a system that could be applied to the practical needs of Roman society. His emphasis on duty, ethical flexibility, and human agency made Stoicism more accessible and adaptable, allowing it to flourish among Roman statesmen and intellectuals. Through his influence on Cicero and other Roman thinkers, Panaetius's ideas continued to shape Western thought for centuries. His legacy is a testament to the enduring power of Stoic philosophy and its ability to evolve and adapt to changing times and cultures. Today, Panaetius is remembered as one of the key figures who helped shape Stoicism into one of the most influential schools of thought in the history of philosophy.